Alex sat in his office, still dressed in his pajamas and clutching a half-empty cup of coffee, its warmth long gone. The events of the morning replayed in his mind like a reel on loop, each memory as vivid as the moment it happened. His wife, Leah, had sat him down at the kitchen table after breakfast, her expression strained and her hands shaking. She'd spoken softly, as though delivering news too fragile to bear. "I want an open marriage," she'd said, her voice breaking as she tried to look him in the eye. The words hit him like a wave of icy water. For a moment, he thought he'd misheard, but the look on her face was one of conviction, a conviction he hadn't seen in a long time. Now, hours later, Alex still hadn't moved from his chair. His entire world, the foundation of his life, had been rattled, and he was left in a fog, struggling to make sense of it. He and Leah had been married for 5 years, together for 7, and in all that time, she'd never once expressed a desire for anything outside their relationship. They were in sync, or so he'd thought. Alex tried to piece together where this had come from, wondering if he'd missed signs along the way. He remembered how Leah's eyes used to light up when she talked about the future they'd build together, how they'd laugh about growing old side by side. She was his best friend, the woman who made him feel like he was enough, flaws and all. But now, the woman he thought he knew was asking for something that threatened everything they had built. In the quiet of his office, Alex sifted through memories, trying to make sense of Leah's revelation. Over the years, he'd noticed her craving for excitement, her love of the thrill, the new. Leah was vibrant, charismatic, the type of person who could light up a room. She had an infectious laugh, a magnetic presence, and he'd always felt like the luckiest man alive just being with her. She was the 10, as his friends would often remind him, while he was the self-described 5, the shy, introverted man who never quite understood what he'd done to deserve her love. But this morning had changed everything. Leah confessed that she felt trapped, unfulfilled, as though something vital was missing. She admitted that she'd thought about this idea, an open relationship, for some time. "I'm not trying to hurt you, Alex," she'd whispered, tears in her eyes. "I just need to be honest. There are parts of me I feel I've hidden for so long, parts that long to experience something different." Each word cut deeper than the last. How had he missed this? He'd always believed their love was enough, that his loyalty and devotion could satisfy her. He'd put her happiness above his own, eager to make her feel secure, cherished, even admired by those around them. But her words made it clear that she felt something was missing, something that he alone couldn't give. Leah had mentioned a few men she'd known before they'd met, old connections she hadn't pursued out of respect for their relationship. She claimed that a part of her was left wondering what if about those mischances. Seeing her tears, her swollen eyes, Alex had felt his heart twist in sympathy. A part of him even wanted to comfort her, to hold her and tell her it would be okay. But he couldn't move. He could barely breathe. The weight of Leah's confession pressed down on him, rendering him helpless. As the day wore on, Alex found himself combing through articles online, reading everything he could find about open marriages and relationships. It was a desperate attempt to understand, to make sense of a world that seemed alien to him. He came across stories of couples who had managed to navigate open relationships successfully, who claimed that it had brought them closer, reignited passion, and even strengthened their commitment. But for every success story, there were countless tales of heartbreak and betrayal, of couples who had ventured down this path only to lose themselves in the process. Alex felt sick, overwhelmed by the conflicting advice and the myriad possibilities of what an open marriage might mean for them. In his heart, he knew that he wanted no part of this. He had built his life around Leah, around the idea of a monogamous relationship. The thought of sharing her, of watching her seek happiness in the arms of another man, was too much to bear. Yet he couldn't simply dismiss her feelings. Leah was his wife, the woman he loved, and he wanted to support her in whatever way he could. But how could he reconcile his own needs with hers? How could he maintain his dignity, his self-worth, while allowing her to explore something that went against everything he believed in? The questions swirled in his mind, each one more painful than the last. Alex felt lost, trapped between his love for Leah and his own values. By evening, Alex realized that he couldn't navigate this alone. If there was any chance of salvaging their marriage, they would need guidance. He approached Leah, who was sitting quietly on the couch, lost in thought. "We should talk to someone," he said, his voice steady but strained. "A therapist, someone who can help us understand what this means for us." Leah looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Alex," she whispered, reaching for his hand. "Thank you for being willing to try." The words felt hollow, but he forced himself to nod, to hold her hand, even as a part of him recoiled. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into an unknown future that threatened to swallow him whole. Days passed in a blur for Alex, each one thick with silence and unspoken tension. He barely slept, haunted by the image of Leah's tearful expression when she confessed her feelings. Yet he couldn't ignore the churning anger and sadness within him. He'd agreed to therapy, but every fiber of his being dreaded what they might uncover. On their first morning in the therapist's office, Alex sat stiffly on the edge of a brown leather couch, the smell of lavender and eucalyptus filling the room. Dr. Reiner, their therapist, was calm and composed, a soft-spoken woman in her early 40s with empathetic eyes that seemed to see straight through him. She welcomed them both, inviting them to share the reason for their visit. Leah was the first to speak. I want to explore other relationships," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know it sounds selfish, and it feels strange to even ask, but it's been on my mind for a while. I want to experience something new." Alex's jaw tightened, his fingers digging into the leather of the couch as he listened. He wondered if Dr. Reiner could see the resentment simmering beneath his calm exterior. "Leah," Dr. Reiner said gently, "can you tell us more about what brought you to this point? Was there a specific moment? Or has this been something you felt for a long time?" Leah hesitated, glancing at Alex as if gauging his reaction. "I think it's been building for a while," she admitted. "There were times in the past when I felt drawn to other people, but I always pushed those feelings away. I thought that being married meant I had to let go of that part of myself." A pang of hurt lanced through Alex. How long had Leah been feeling this way without telling him? He forced himself to stay silent, to let her speak, but each word was like a dagger twisting in his chest. As the session continued, Dr. Reiner turned her attention to Alex, asking him to share his perspective. I don't understand this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've always been faithful to Leah. I thought we were on the same page, that we both wanted the same things." Dr. Reiner nodded, her expression empathetic. "Alex, it's clear that you value loyalty and commitment very deeply. But part of this process is understanding Leah's perspective as well, and finding a way to bridge the gap between your needs." He swallowed, nodding reluctantly. He wanted to make this work, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being asked to give up a piece of himself to satisfy Leah's desires. It wasn't until their third session that Leah dropped the first bombshell. After weeks of Alex prodding her for specifics, hoping it would reveal a misunderstanding or some deep-seated issue they could address, she finally admitted to being drawn to people outside of their marriage. 3 specific people, in fact. "They're just people I work with," she said, her gaze fixed on her hands. "We only see each other occasionally, maybe at conferences or group meetings, but I find myself thinking about them sometimes." Alex felt the air leave his lungs. People she worked with. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. These weren't strangers. These were people she interacted with, people who might see him as Leah's husband, unaware of her attraction to them. Dr. Reiner cleared her throat gently. "Leah, can you tell Alex what it is about these people that draws you to them?" Leah hesitated, casting a nervous glance at Alex. "They're confident," she began, her voice soft. "They're outgoing, funny, maybe a little reckless. They make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years." The words cut deeper than he expected. Confidence, fun, recklessness. Traits Alex had always considered his weaknesses. He was a planner, cautious and pragmatic, qualities he thought Leah valued. But hearing her speak of them now, it felt like a judgment, as if she saw him as someone safe but uninspiring. A cold silence settled over the room, and for a moment, he couldn't bring himself to look at her. This wasn't just about curiosity or desire. She was drawn to people who represented everything he was not. In the weeks that followed, Alex and Leah continued therapy, each session exposing more of the fractures in their relationship. Dr. Reiner pushed them to be honest, to confront the fears and insecurities that lay beneath the surface. One afternoon, in a session Alex would never forget, Leah confessed to fantasizing about one of her co-workers, someone he'd met once or twice at work events. "I never acted on it," she assured him, her face flushed with embarrassment. "But I couldn't help it. It was exciting to imagine something different, something that didn't involve all the weight of our life together." The confession broke something inside him. He sat there, numb, as Leah continued talking, her words blurring together in a stream of explanations that he barely heard. The idea of Leah imagining herself with someone else, someone he knew, was more than he could bear. Dr. Reiner observed the exchange silently, allowing Leah to finish before addressing Alex. "How does that make you feel, Alex?" His hands clenched, the anger and betrayal bubbling to the surface. "How do you think it makes me feel?" he snapped, his voice tinged with bitterness. "My wife, the woman I trusted completely, is sitting here telling me she fantasizes about other men. Men she works with, no less." Leah flinched, her eyes welling up with tears. But he was too hurt to feel sympathy. He'd given her everything, his love, his loyalty, his respect, and now he felt like a fool for believing that it would be enough. "Alex," Dr. Reiner interjected gently, "it's understandable to feel hurt and betrayed. But this is an opportunity for both of you to express what you need, to decide if this relationship can work with both of your needs met." He shook his head, the frustration mounting. "I don't know how to do that," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to love someone who doesn't see me as enough." The turning point came during a late-night session, after weeks of dancing around the idea of boundaries and compromise. Leah sat across from Alex, her face streaked with tears as she pleaded for his understanding. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. I don't want to give up on something that might make me happier, too." Alex felt the weight of her words, the desperation in her voice, and for a fleeting moment, he considered giving in. He could agree to her terms, allow her the freedom she craved, and pretend that it didn't tear him apart inside. But deep down, he knew it would destroy him. "Let's set some rules," he said finally, his voice barely audible. "If this is going to work, we need to set boundaries." Leah nodded eagerly, relief flooding her expression. "Yes, of course. Anything you need, Alex." He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. "First, there's no emotional attachment," he said, his tone firm. "If this is purely physical, then that's the limit. No romantic feelings, no long-term connections." She hesitated, but eventually nodded, though her expression betrayed a flicker of doubt. "And no one we know personally," he added, the words slipping out before he could stop them. "I can't handle the thought of you with someone we both know." Leah agreed, her voice soft and reassuring. But Alex could sense the hesitation, the uncertainty that lingered beneath her promises. For a moment, he allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this compromise would be enough to save their marriage. But a part of him knew that trust, once broken, was difficult to mend. The days that followed the therapy sessions were heavy with tension, each moment laced with unsaid words and unacknowledged feelings. Alex felt as though he was living in a fog, unable to escape the reality of Leah's desires. He had agreed to the boundaries they'd set, but every time he thought of her with another man, the gnawing ache in his chest intensified. At work, he struggled to focus. His colleagues noticed the change in him, his distracted demeanor and the shadows under his eyes. "You okay, Alex?" Tom, a fellow engineer, asked one afternoon, concern etched on his face. "Yeah, just personal stuff," Alex replied, forcing a smile. But inside, he felt like he was crumbling. He couldn't shake the feeling that his life was spiraling out of control, and he was powerless to stop it. Leah was excited about their agreement, often bringing it up during dinner or casual conversations. "It feels good to have boundaries, doesn't it?" she would say, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Like we're finding a way to make this work together." Alex would nod, forcing a smile, but inside he felt like a puppet on strings, manipulated by a situation he had never wanted. He couldn't shake the feeling that this arrangement was temporary, a stopgap measure that would only delay the inevitable. During one particularly tense evening, Leah suggested they revisit the terms they had established. I was thinking, maybe we should allow for some emotional connections too. Just a little, she said, her voice hopeful. No, Alex replied sharply, the anger surging through him. That's not the point of this, Leah. If we go down that road, we're just asking for trouble. Leah's expression fell, hurt flashing across her face. I thought we were trying to make this work. I'm trying, he snapped back, frustration boiling over. But you're the one who wanted this. You can't just shift the rules because it feels uncomfortable now. Silence enveloped them, heavy and oppressive. Leah looked down, her fingers twisting in her lap. I'm sorry, Alex. I thought we could find a way to make it work for both of us. Alex sighed, feeling the weight of her words settle like a stone in his stomach. They were caught in a delicate dance, both trying to find balance, but the rhythm fell off. The breaking point came during a late-night session with Dr. Reiner. The therapist encouraged them to dig deeper into their emotions, to confront the raw, painful truths that lay beneath their facade of control. Leah, you've shared a lot about your feelings and desires, Dr. Reiner began, her voice calm and steady. But Alex, I'd like to hear from you. How do you feel about the current situation? Alex took a deep breath, his heart racing as he prepared to voice the thoughts he had buried for so long. I feel betrayed, he said, the words spilling out in a rush. I feel like I'm being asked to share my wife with other men, and it hurts more than I can express. I thought our love was enough, but now I'm not so sure. Tears welled in Leah's eyes as she listened, her face pale. I never meant to hurt you, Alex. I just wanted to explore something different. But you're doing it at my expense, he replied, his voice rising. I don't want to be your safety net while you seek thrills with others. I want to be your partner, your only partner. If you need to explore, then maybe I can't be the one for you. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Alex felt a mix of relief and dread, unsure of what lay ahead. He had finally spoken his truth, but the repercussions were yet to be seen. After the session, Alex walked home in a daze, the city lights blurring into streaks as he fought back tears. He felt a sense of liberation from finally articulating his pain, yet an overwhelming sadness settled in. He knew he couldn't keep living this way, torn between love and resentment. That night, he lay in bed beside Leah, the familiar warmth now feeling like a barrier. They had always shared this space, their laughter echoing in the walls, but now it felt foreign, filled with tension and unsaid words. Are you okay? Leah whispered, reaching for him. I don't know, he admitted, turning to face her. I'm scared, Leah. Scared of losing you, but scared of what you're asking me to accept. Leah sighed, her face lined with regret. I didn't mean for it to come to this. I thought we could make it work. Maybe we can't, he replied, his heart heavy. Maybe it's time to face the truth. This isn't what I want, and I can't keep pretending that it is. The following weeks were filled with deep reflection for Alex. He sought solace in his hobbies, running, drawing, spending time with friends. Anything to reclaim a sense of self he felt slipping away. He realized he had lost himself in the fight to save his marriage, and it was time to prioritize his own happiness. One evening, he sat down with Leah, his heart racing. We need to talk, he said, his voice steady. I can't do this anymore. This open marriage idea, it's not what I want. I want a committed relationship with you, but I can't accept this version of us. Leah's expression shifted from surprise to anguish. But Alex, I thought we were working through this together. We're not, he replied, his heart aching. You want something that I can't give you, and I can't keep sacrificing my happiness for yours. It's not fair to either of us. The tears streamed down Leah's cheeks, and for a moment, Alex felt a pang of guilt. But deep down, he knew this was the right decision. They were no longer on the same path, and it was time to acknowledge that reality. Their divorce unfolded in a whirlwind of emotions. There were moments of clarity, but also pain that felt insurmountable. As they divided their shared life, Alex experienced a mixture of relief and sorrow, realizing that letting go of Leah meant relinquishing a part of himself. In the final moments before the divorce was finalized, Alex and Leah sat across from each other in a small office. The air was thick with unspoken words, the weight of their shared memories hanging heavy. "I'll always love you," Leah said, her voice breaking. "You were my everything, and you were mine," Alex replied, his heart aching. "But I can't be the person you want me to be, and you can't be the person I need. I hope you find what you're looking for." As they signed the papers, Alex felt a sense of finality wash over him. This chapter of his life was closing, and with it came the promise of new beginnings, even if it felt uncertain. In the months that followed, Alex immersed himself in self-discovery. He traveled, explored new hobbies, and met new people. Slowly but surely, he began to reclaim his sense of self, learning to embrace the parts of him that had been overshadowed during his marriage. One evening, while attending a local art exhibit, he met Mia, a vibrant woman with a passion for life that resonated deeply with him. They struck up a conversation that flowed effortlessly, filled with laughter and shared stories. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt a spark of connection that made him hopeful about the future. As their relationship blossomed, Alex reflected on his journey. He had faced heartbreak, confusion, and loss, but through it all, he had learned the importance of self-love and the value of being true to oneself. Alex stood on the balcony of his new apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. He thought of Leah and the memories they had shared, both good and painful. He had grown from the experience, realizing that love requires balance, respect, and understanding. He knew now that he could embrace the future without being haunted by the past. In his heart, he was ready to move forward, to love again, and to live authentically, without the shadows of unmet expectations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he felt a sense of peace, knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be.